Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday again already. Somehow that's happened. It's Wednesday afternoon for most of you. It's 12:30. It's 11:30 a.m. for me. I'm back here an hour behind in the UK. And you'll probably notice something a little bit different this week. I mean, first of all, there's no Chris Heilman. Chris has taken a well-deserved, well-earned holiday, a vacation, if you can call it that. We are in the age of Slack. So I did see Chris responding to a message this morning, but hopefully he's going to manage to switch off and unplug and take some time off. So that means you're with me for the next 2 weeks. This week and next week, I'm going to be taking you through some of the stories from the weird and wonderful world of tech, and a lot more. And I'm joined by a fantastic guest as always, and I'm going to bring them up on stage right now. I'm joined by Francesco Ciulla. Francesco, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was looking for Chris, but this is what we have for today, so that's it.
Well, it's good to have you back. I know it's been a little while since we caught up. I mean, we see each other maybe once, twice a year. We see each other a lot online, and we'll get into in a moment some of what you're up to. You're always every single day doing something, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But how's it looking for you? What's this time of year like? What's May sort of got in the bag for you?
Many things. I'm enjoying my last days at home, without traveling, without losing planes and so on. And then I will start conferences. I will be at 2 conferences on the same day. So basically clone myself with AI. I will record a video that will go live on a conference while I go in person to another conference. I have a wedding coming soon, not mine yet, and and then I'll go to the US, other conferences, and then I have this small conference in Berlin called WeAreDevelopers.
Now, Francesco, we're going to get into some of the stories from the week. I mean, I say from the week, we try and sort of wrap up a little bit of what's been happening, keep our finger on the pulse. Some stories that are from this week, and some that are a bit more broad, if you like. Now, one that's just been on my mind a lot, because I think this is something where I know that accessibility is, we all know it's important. We all know it's essential, but I think it's something that if we're honest with ourselves as developers, we don't do anywhere near as well as we should. So I thought this would be an interesting place to start, really, because taking a look at this is from the gov.uk website, which has been talked about quite a lot for its own accessibility features as a website. It's I had a friend say to me, "Oh, I can't stand that website. I find it really hard to use." And I said to them, "Well, you're not using a screen reader, or you're not using the contrast is very high with the colors, so it's very accessible." But this article here, they've got some front-end developers sort of discussing their attitude, if you like, towards accessibility, and I thought it was interesting they started off with just like semantic HTML, because some people think that's really what accessibility is. As long as I've got these big landmarks and things are semantic, then I've done my job. But just to get your view on it, when you're building a site, how do you, where does accessibility come into your thought process? At the start, in the middle, at the end, when someone points it out? What's your sort of approach?
Yeah, sure. So it's something that I think it has been haunting the tech. Like, I mean, this idea of creating sites that are not accessible, and then they have accessibility experts, and then we have topics and lists or things that we should do. Everyone, by the way. I will be quick here because I don't consider myself as a super expert in this field, but I know that this is a very important topic. I think that now, I think in the past, many people say, like, I don't have time to create the site accessible. I think that's the most common use case. I think I used to use this sometimes. Now with AI, you don't have this excuse anymore, because you can just, I think AI is amazing at accessibility, improving performances, all, those tasks that maybe you are not expert in, but maybe we would like to improve it. So probably now, I don't mean that with a single prompt you can have an accessible website, okay? No. But you can ask, like, instead of just using AI just to vibe code, try to also to say, like, what's wrong with this code? Can we make it more accessible? Which are the steps? Let's open, I don't know, 10 issues, 20 issues about what could be improved. And then you can improve it one by one. So I think this is the only thing that I think here I have more or less to say, because here there are like people who have like a clear process in their mind of what it should be done. Of course, semantic HTML is one of the things that might help in people to have like sites to get read. And for example, on my side, for example, in the past, I've been writing many thousands of alt for images on like when I post on Twitter. Now it's super easy. You don't have an excuse anymore. You literally give the image to ChatGPT. Of course, you check that it says something meaningful, and then you put this as an alt. There's no excuse anymore. It's actually 5 seconds. Sometimes I forget still because I'm dumb. But now it's way easier to add an alt, for example, to an image, to add this, because, I don't know, maybe you want to create an alt for your images on your website. If you have 100 images, it takes some energy. But you can, using AI, you can create alts very easily. It's one of my best use cases with AI, creating alts for images, and then of course you can use this for this. So as you can see, sometimes they're just excuses, and instead we can use AI. I think it's a perfect use case.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point there, because I think that excuse me, so much of what we say about AI coding and vibe coding, it's almost very quickly become like a dirty word. You know, it's a bad thing if you're doing this, because people think, well, you're probably not thinking about accessibility, or you're not thinking about user experience. You're just making a UI with the features that you want. And I think that's really important what you say, because I'll be honest, I do exactly the same. I am not an expert. I feel a little bit like with accessibility, it's like it's a never-ending hole, you know, and if you keep digging into it, and you're almost worried about what you'll find, because there's more and more and more and more and more layers, that you then start overthinking everything you do. And you're thinking, well, you know, how can I make this a usable website or app, but also make it accessible, but then not spend so much time on the accessibility that the actual project itself kind of, you know, falls by the wayside. So I think you're right. AI can kind of sit in that middle ground. Now, I did have another one on this similar sort of topic, really, because this was an article I found where it's more so about the culture in an organization, and it really got me thinking about kind of what is an accessible culture. You know, we've obviously we work in lots of different ways. A lot of us work, whether it be remotely, or we work in office, or we work simultaneously, or we work async. And it's not just about how we work in that way, but it's how do we actually make the people in the organization feel that they are able to succeed in the same way. And I suppose it got me thinking about how we work. You work remotely, I work remotely. How do you work on a day-to-day basis? Is it sort of through Slack or through Discord, or, you know, do you speak to your bosses in a stand-up, or do you not speak to them at all? And do you ever get lonely on your own? You know, all of those kinds of things about the culture of where you work. How would you describe it where you are?
Yeah, I mean, usually we use Slack, and of course I use also emails a lot lately. And I think about accessibility culture, but then I think we can have the analogy with open source. Like everybody likes it, very few people are doing it. So this is, I think, it's very similar with accessibility. So what's the best way to improve and foster this? A very AI-ish, no, I'm not joking, term, just because I don't like it, but that's just a personal taste. I think the best would be, it's simple. We need to have someone who is expert in accessibility in our company. That's simple. If in our company we have a person who is very expert about DevOps, when we'll have a problem with that, we have a person to talk with, a direct access. So I think that we should have at least one person. I don't know if this is enough. I think it also depends on the size of the organization. If we can have a person who just does this as a job, or it can also be a person who does something else, but maybe they had the past, they are expert about this topic. So if you want to create an accessible culture, you need someone who is expert about accessibility in your company. I think this is the brutal truth, because if you don't have that, how can you create an accessibility culture without accessibility experts in your company? Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting, because I think it's one of those things about, you know, you can use these tools that will test the accessibility of your website, but you don't really know how they're being used by people that may be using assistive technology. And I've learned that there's assistive technology out there that you might not even know exists. you might not even be aware of it because you don't need to go and find that technology. So then how can you build something that takes that technology into account? You need somebody who understands that technology. And I think you made a really good point, but also there's this one here, this design systems. Design systems have become, the word almost has lost its meaning now. I've seen companies before say, we're trying to implement a design system, and they don't really know why they're doing it. Largely, they're doing it so that when they make assets, like they maybe make a website or they make some graphics, it's got the same brand colors on and things like this. But it's not, is it? It's about the size of the font and what sizes have they decided are the most accessible sizes, or the colors that are used and the contrast that goes with them. So I think that when I saw this, I thought it's just going around my mind again and again about how accessibility is in everything. It's not separate to anything. It is in everything. And I think it's just something for us as non-experts. We're not experts. It's just something for us to really kind of put out there into the kind of discussion a little bit. It's something that is definitely on my mind a lot at the moment. So very interesting. Let's be honest, Francesco, it's never going to be, we're never going to be that far away from AI, right? We can try to get away from AI and vibe coding, but it's everywhere, and for good reason. Have you had a chance to read this article? Have you had a look at it, or even just in general, have you had a skim?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm sorry. Advanced by coding, really big numbers. There is a cap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's definitely, they knew how to get our attention with the cat at the top. So this is from Raymond, who's part of the WeAreDevelopers community as well. We've had Raymond come on and do sessions for us, and he's always got a really interesting take, and he's very, very experienced. And I saw this, and do you know what? When I first started reading the article, I thought it was going to be another article of people complaining about vibe coding, because I'm seeing there's two sides to this. There's people that are saying, I love it, it's great. Maybe there's some concerns around security, but it's fun. And then there's people that are saying, this is killing coding and I hate it, and it's the worst thing that we've ever introduced. Now, it's not actually a kind of piece where Raymond is saying, this is awful. He's actually saying, I thought I'd have some fun with this and see how far I could go with actually using huge numbers and like really complex mathematical equations, or even just large numbers with vibe coding, and seeing how far it could go, like testing the limits of its like mathematical ability. And it ends up actually as, you can see all of his prompts. He's kind of going through and he's just saying, actually, I can just put it in these terms. Oops, I do want to support millions. Can you just fix that? And then fixing the output and moving on, you get this long function, and then moving on to the end where it's all commented as well. It's showing him like, this is your use case, or your case if you've got a billion number or a million number, etc. And this just got me thinking about, do we actually sort of try, when we're vibe coding things, are we actually making things that are complex, or are they just simple but done quickly? That's what I would say on it. What have you made so far vibe coding? Is it complex things? Could you do it yourself, or is it quite simple but just looks complex?
Yes, thank you. So on Twitter now I have the reputation of vibe coding haters. I also made a simple post like, I hate vibe coding. And I got a comment, of course it was Twitter, telling me, Francesco, why do you hate people who vibe codes? No, I didn't say this, but on Twitter is Twitter. I made a live stream a couple of days ago when I ranted about what I really think about vibe coding, so I came prepared even if I didn't read the article in details. I tried to put some pros and cons on vibe coding, and I'll be quick. I think we can all agree that vibe coding can really help us to prototype something fast. Like the era when we needed 4 hours to get started, we can say it's over, because now there are so many ways to have something up and running, something which is sort of working, that can really help. What I really don't like about vibe coding, and I'll die on this hill when I'll be 80, is that I don't like, generally speaking, things that makes you lose control. And you will always lose control when if we copy paste something from Stack Overflow and we just put this in our code, maybe it's copy paste code, but it's very similar to web coding. It's just a slower process. We are using a code that we don't know what it does, and now it's in our code. We have been doing this for some time. maybe the problem is that before we didn't have like a whole application that we can just copy paste, unless, I don't know, maybe we find the perfect repository on GitHub. That's also can be considered vibe coding. Like we find all the code of the application, we run, we input it, it copy paste, and now it's ours. There are also the memes now it's my code, no?
Mm.
And so and what I really also don't like about vibe coding is the fact that when you're stuck, you might be in a worse condition compared to someone who knows what they are doing and they get stuck. So when you get stuck, you are really in trouble because now you need to understand why, what happened, what does the new code does, what all the code was doing, and you might end up even losing more time. So that's probably and also, for example, I tried with YK on my YouTube channel. We tried to vibe code a Space Invader game. If you know what Space Invader is, you're probably old. Since this game is well known, it kind of worked. Here, for example, the Raymond is doing something which is not a day-to-day task. So when you start doing the day-to-day task, something strange, something starts to happen. I don't know if you saw, this is unrelated but related to vibe coding. If you try to ask AI to generate a left-handed person to write, it will have issues because most of the people are right-handed. So it's a bit hard for AI to understand that you need to create an image of someone who is holding a pen in their left hand for simple statistical reasons of images that are on the web. So it's similar here. If you try to do something with big numbers that you usually don't, you see the first error was like I want this to be compatible with millions, and this is not something that you usually have in a common program. So the more mainstream code program you do, the more you can sort of use vibe coding. But then you're doing something that already exists or something which maybe it's a bit, it has been already done 1,000 times. If you want to do something a bit uncommon, and if you want to implement maybe a newer feature, maybe something that, I don't know, maybe, we have a new company like Stripe that creates a new paying system. Is AI ready for this? I don't know, maybe it will take some time, and maybe we want to implement for our application now because it has been released yesterday and everyone on Twitter is talking about this. So this can also be an issue for vibe coding. The last liner is that vibe coding, yes, if I had a single line, but with your brain connected to the keyboard. So that's my final thought about vibe coding. And I will keep hating vibe coding on Twitter because that's the character. Like I hate Python. That's a brand. It's not true, but now it's part of me.
Yeah, I think we know it's not. Excuse me. We know it's not true because I think most of us, we do it to some degree. I think it's interesting when you say that, going back to the point you made about, it gives us code and then we copy and paste it in, and then that is kind of vibe coding, but there's that manual step in between. Now, I think that's the important thing because, again, it sounds unrelated, but this is kind of linked in that, I've done a lot of work on my house, right? Remodeling my house. And I didn't know how to do almost any of it. I was figuring it out. I was going, okay, I need to know how I can plaster this wall. So I'm looking at YouTube videos on plastering and things like this, really specific things. Now, if I did the equivalent of vibe coding, I would have just taken the information they've given me, got going, and not really thought about what kind of wall is this, or like, is this the instructions I've read, are they for the UK or for the US? Is this actually going to work in the UK? And I probably would have still, for the first 6 months, thought, well, I've fixed my house here, I've built something really great. But then after that, I would find that the plaster would start falling off the walls, or I had an electrical issue because I've done the wrong one because I've just used whatever I found online. And I feel a little bit like, to bring it back to development, that's kind of the issue with vibe coding. You still need to do that bit in between where you say the information's useful, but is it actually the information I need? Or the code looks okay, but is it actually the code I need? And I wonder if maybe, do you think that do we hit like a ceiling with vibe coding? And then for most people, they'll just never feel the ceiling. They'll just build something and they'll say, this is the most advanced thing I've ever built. But that there's a limit. And that maybe they just haven't hit that limit. It's not sophisticated enough to really be a problem. But that when you get into that sophisticated realm, is that where the issues, occur, where trying to do anything complicated, basically. Is that sort of what you would suggest is like where the issues happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we are writing more complex code than the code we were writing 40 years ago. Now, probably writing an HTML page is easy. You can even host it for free on GitHub Pages or something else. So the real question is, are we gonna write the same apps, or are we gonna write more complex apps? I think we are going to write more complex apps in the future, connected to more things that does more stuff faster. So it's a market. So we need to now probably to bootstrap application in a day. Before maybe we had a month. So the request is higher. Is nowhere let's say slowing. So the question is, are we writing more complex or more simpler applications? We are writing more complex applications, and now that we have AI, we can do this quicker. It's like when we had now we have factories, so maybe we can produce more things faster. Is it slowing down? Doesn't seem so. It's the opposite, because now everyone is doing it. Everyone can do it, and it's probably worse than earlier, because maybe before there were still things crafted and handmade, and now it's harder, even unless you are very good or you have probably social media presence. So that's the real question. And about I'm not absolutely against the whole vibe coding thing. Again, I don't like that when you get stuck, you want to just cry. I prefer to go a bit slow, probably use AI, but I want to keep my workflow. So open separate issues, working on a feature at a time. I think we should not stop doing it. Call me old, but if I want to add authentication, I want to add pagination, I want to add sessions, I want to add I want to do the design, I still want to do this as a separate process. I will probably be faster than someone who tries to do this in a single prompt. We can even try to do a challenge, but I'm sure that if you know what you're doing and you break your job in separate tasks, because this probably is becoming the job of a developer, understanding which are the tasks, which are the things you want to implement. You can even use AI to make a list of things you should implement if you really want to use AI extensively. But I think that the process of creating a feature, creating a branch, trying it out, and then merging it, and so Git is amazing. This should not go away unless you are just doing this as we were doing like before Git or before the versioning. We try to write a lot of code, and then it doesn't work. Okay, and now you have to go back and you spend hours, and you hate yourself. It's basically you are going a bit backward in that case. Unless I think if you understand all the workflow, all the things that should be done in the right order, then we can be super quick. Like, okay, now let's add pagination. Now let's improve design. Now let's create a card. And now let's create this component. I like to still code in this way, even if I ask AI to create me, a single component, a single page. Am I the crazy one? Like, no, the meme, like, or not?
I mean, I think even that advice of like saying, do things in these kind of focused ways, like build a feature at a time. I think they get the best results from the LLMs. So even if you are vibe coding, if you're saying to it, build this app with all of these features in one go, you'll get something close to it, but a really bad, simple version where it doesn't really know any of the details. Whereas if you do, like you've just said, I want to build this specific feature. I want the user experience to go this way. I want the UI to look like this. I want this functionality. It can focus in because you're able to feed it that context, a few files rather than read my entire code base and spend 15 minutes trying to generate a response that's wrong. That takes me on nicely actually to this one here. Now, this is only an abstract. This is an academic article, but it's been kind of pulled down into news articles. And it got me thinking a lot, right? Because we saw a couple of weeks ago, Sam Altman from OpenAI, he said, we're spending millions on people saying please and thank you. And it's costing them, the tokens and the credit, just saying please and thank you. And so then what this did is it led on to this conversation around, okay, but if we need to say please and thank you to the LLM to get a better result, then, well, we're still going to do it. even if it's costing OpenAI a lot of money, I'm going to say please and thank you. So it got me thinking about, do we say please and thank you? And a friend of mine who's not in tech, I asked him this question 2 days ago. And I said, do you say please and thank you to ChatGPT? Now, he uses it mostly for helping him write emails. He's got quite chronic dyslexia, so writing on a screen can be difficult. So he often just puts his draft into ChatGPT and it gives him the kind of, the corrections. And I said, do you say please and thank you? And he said, every single time. And I said, why? And he said, because you never know if it will remember. And it got me thinking, because I thought, okay, that's a little bit Skynet, it's a little bit Terminator, but he could also be right. And it made me think then, do I say please and thank you? So how about you? When you're speaking to it, are you to the point? Do you write in Italian most of the time? Do you speak in Italian and have it translate? Or
Interesting take. So do I say thank you and please? Probably sometimes I did, sometimes I don't. It depends. So it's just what it feels. And yes, and if you don't know what you're talking about with Skynet and Terminator, you should fix this bug as soon as possible. I think that I read the article and the thing, and I think that the take, I might be wrong, that the take was that yes, it's spending more money, but it's also understanding how the human behave, like how the human behave. So maybe it's not all a waste of time. And I mean, people are wasting like their money on ChatGPT anyway, asking them stuff that could be Googled in a second, because now we are more used to do that. So we are wasting energies and resources anyway, when we keep our light open, or keep the water flowing. So that should not be done, of course. So that's the thing. I think that it's not about the respect of LLM. We tend to mirror with our humanity whatever we have to do with. We tend to respect flowers and plants, or even an object, because maybe it has a value for us. This object has been gifted to my grandmother. It has a value for me. So, but probably the object doesn't know this. But we tend to give our human, let's say, then we have a human behavior to objects. But this was way before ChatGPT, cars, fridges, our PC. Sometimes we kick or we love our PC because maybe it's doing something cool once in a while. And so I think this is just human behavior. And no, I don't know then, but if I have to force myself to don't say thank you to ChatGPT because this would spend more energy, I don't know. I spent like a lot of like biological like brain energy. So that's also energy. And I don't want to stop and think about this. This is also energy. I need to eat more probably if I have to do this 100 times. So should we respect LLMs? You should understand that probably it will not have a huge impact. I will be very curious to see a study of like a person who does the same prompts with or without, and if there is a difference. There should not be. We might be surprised by the outcome.
Yeah. I think these studies into this, this really interests me because we kind of joke on here sometimes about, here in Britain, people say sorry quite a lot, if you for everything, even if you didn't mean to do it. And I've said sorry so many times to an LLM for it giving me an incorrect response, and then me saying, sorry about that. I've actually given you the wrong prompt. And you automatically kind of come from this place of like apologizing. And it got me thinking about, how many credits are used, or how many tokens, are used just from people saying sorry to the LLM. But also, do we see these kind of big differences in how people communicate? My wife being from Brazil, we noticed that when she would speak to an LLM in English, she would be very to the point, and please and thank you didn't really cross her mind, because she's like, no, I'm just being functional with how I communicate. And I thought, well, as a native speaker, I don't do that. I'm feeling more conversational with it. I'm not being so to the point and kind of short. But it's an interesting point. I think that we'll wait for more studies to be done, hey. But it's an interesting story. So on that, I just wanted to leave a little tool here, really, as the last one, because it got me thinking. So I saw this. And it's just a quick question for you, really. This is, I mean, we saw that Cursor was the AI alternative to VS Code, and now Void is the open source alternative to Cursor, which was the AI alternative to VS Code. So it's complicated, but as a simple question, what's your go-to IDE? Are you Cursor? Are you Bolt? Are you Windsurf? What are you using at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, I didn't know about this IDE, so now I will just do a full crash course about Void on my YouTube channel. No, I'm joking. My to-go for now is still VS Code with GitHub Copilot enabled, that I have it also for free because I have a Microsoft MVP, hashtag bragging. And but I will probably still go in that direction. There is a simple and dumb reason for me. It's because when I install Cursor, the path of like typing like code space dot or it's been replaced with Cursor. This I still haven't fixed this, so I can't have a full functional VS Code and Cursor on my machine. I'm on a Windows machine with WSL, and everything has to work. At some point, probably I might switch fully to Cursor and try that. I tried it a couple of times. And for now, I'm still using VS Code, which has an agent mode, which probably is, I think maybe it's not the same as Cursor, but it's fine for what I do. Sometimes when I do videos, I don't want this to be too much AI-ish, because I know that maybe to share just something. And so VS Code is better for me in my case. I need less automation. So in that case, it's easier for me to remove GitHub Copilot or remove the extensions just because I want to show on the screen a tutorial on how this should be done without stuff appearing and my code written in a second. So probably that's a bit of an edge case. And yes, we will see more IDEs, but I think we should really not focus too much on learning too many IDEs. I hate when I have to learn a new IDE because I want to spend my time coding and not my time about learning new things. I'm not saying the name, but I tried a tool that helped me to generate code. And then, I had to start, understanding the things, the shortcuts, and I started to hate that. Like, I don't want to learn new things from scratch. I don't know the reason why they created another alternative to an alternative, but I don't know. Probably they saw that Windsurf has been sold for $3 billion. So I say, hey, maybe we can make at least one. Maybe this was their thought.
Yeah, I like that way of thinking. Yeah, a small piece of the pie. I think it's always, we're always really in support of kind of open source versions of things. So when I saw this, I thought it was quite interesting because I know that obviously Cursor was forked from VS Code, so they're all quite they're fairly open. But obviously with Cursor being a kind of private company, it's not. I don't believe anyway as accessible. So I thought this was a really nice. It's something to look at anyway. I'm going to check it out and see if it's kind of worth the time. But I agree. There's so much to learn in terms of whether it's just how to work with AI and LLMs, let alone having to go and learn a whole new IDE. Now we're going to move on to a topic that I now associate with you. Whenever I hear this word, I think of Francesco, and I see news and I want to send it to you and say, what do you think of this, mate? All the time, anything to do with Rust, because it fascinates me because I mean, oh, excuse me, I have to go back there. It wouldn't let me. I've not actually got a login. There we go. So we've got your article here. Now, before this, full disclosure, I didn't mean to find one of your articles, Francesco. I thought to myself, let's find an article about where we are in 2025 with Rust. I know the Stack Overflow survey is coming around, and I just did a Google search, and I went on one of the top rated articles, and it was you from 5 days ago. I thought, okay, this is just meant to be. Now we have looked at kind of, why why Rust can be an interesting kind of language for people to learn. You've got some things there around memory safety and performance, etc. But what was it that first led you towards it? Because it seems as a language to have come out of nowhere. It's just become hugely popular in the last 3 years, I would say. What was it that led you? And just before you answer that question, somebody in the chat says the Rust conference in the Netherlands is going on now. So there you go. It's a perfect time to talk about Rust. What was it that interested you about it in the first place?
Yeah, so many things. Just before I forget, I wrote this article, I think, just in a couple of hours, and it's 95% handmade, like written by by me. Just some grammar checks because I'm a non-native speaker. The reason why I wrote this article, it was because after releasing this video that you should absolutely check about to learn Rust, it's top Google video for now. Some people started to make this question over and over again. Okay, but why? Okay, but why? So I said, you know what? I'll write an article. So this is like some days after the the video. This article got actually more than, I think, 11,000 views now in a few days, and it was also, of course, at the very end, I would say. So I explain everything here. This is, I think, a very exhaustive answer. For me, the reason why I started to learn Rust, many reasons. One, it was before being laser focused on Rust, I was learning blockchain, and one of the blockchain, Solana, has Rust as a smart contract language. So I said, okay, maybe I can transition something more low level and then go back in creating these some videos about Solana. Spoiler, I made it. I also Solana video now on the channel. I think I published 1 month ago. Another reason, it was the let's say fascinating about like people saying like good things. So having like the Stack Overflow survey, I think is great. I think if you scroll a bit below, there is my point where I share proudly the admired and desired programming language. What does it mean to have a desired programming language? I don't know, but this is what they asked. And as you can see here, I wrote this. Do you want to base your future learning choices on what you read on Twitter, what a tech influencer says, or real data? Even if I'm kind of active on Twitter. So I stay on Twitter, but when I decide what I want to learn, I don't listen to someone telling me on Twitter that you should not do it. I prefer to base my data on actual people, probably that are not even active on social media. And I think that Rust is a sort of, like the Tesla of programming languages, saying that someone hate it for some reason, but then if you talk about like the people who actually used it, because this survey is very interesting, because they asked like, do you want to use Rust again next year after you used it? I think that Tesla is something similar. Like if you own a Tesla, will you still buy it? And like 95% of the people say yes. So this is the real data, because it's not someone who never used it and said, maybe I'll try something else, Zig, at some point. They don't even know Rust, Zig, or Go, nothing, just because they heard it. Instead, I think that it's a great point to try something that, especially people who already tried it. Because if something sucks, I don't know, I don't want to pick a language, but you can check it here. If many people tried it and then they don't want to use it again, it's a sign that maybe to not be worth learning. And so here I try to give some strong points, and I think that Rust really has found the soft spot when we have performance, when we have the experience in writing it. It's also strict. We can use it for different things. One of the things that really fascinated me and started me to create more videos is that Rust can also be used for web development. Maybe not many people know this, but there are Rust web frameworks. There are Rust frameworks for front end. Rust can run as a WASM for the front end. There is a framework, React-like, written in Rust that compiles to WASM. I don't know if you knew this. I have a video on my YouTube channel, sorry for the shameless plug, when I do a full stack application for Rust, both on the front end and the back end. So it's just Rust code, and it also has all the functionalities. You know what is not good about Rust is that it is hard to learn. This is a perfect opportunity for a content creator to create videos and stuff. So what people might see this as a disadvantage, for me is amazing, because I'm here to help and I can create content to you for you to learn it. So some people may see this as it's something hard. For me, I see this as an opportunity. It's great that Rust is hard. I'm joking, because I can then create probably videos that explains it. If it was that easy, maybe we would not need Francesco doing Rust videos.
Yeah, and I think you could see that something was happening. I think you sort of, maybe it was predicted, maybe it was, you know, like just out of your own interest, and that you were sharing that interest with lots of other people. But you definitely got there early when the content around the language was, yeah, it was lacking, and even the community was kind of in the shadows. You know, I think what you've managed to do is bring together some of that community that were out there, the Rust, you know, the people that were learning Rust, or people that were sort of fascinated by it, or just or using it every day. You've managed to bring those together a little bit and give them then a place to share knowledge, and, you know, as well as other YouTubers that will be sort of creating content on it, or other community builders that will create content on it. I think going back to that survey, that is fascinating when you see that, because 82% admired, yeah, 28% desired. So, I mean, that's such a strong indicator that when people use it, they like it, as you said. And that, to me, you know, looking at it and seeing it from the outside and maybe not understanding quite how versatile it is. I didn't know that at all, that there's a kind of React-like framework, and that there will always be people that will look to reduce the friction, you know, and if I came along and I said, I want to work with Rust, and I'm a web dev, then I need something that's going to allow me to kind of work in my own, you know, in my own world of web dev. And I'd like to use Rust. It's not that I want to completely throw that out the way so that I can learn Rust. So I think it's amazing to see how that community is growing so quickly with the language, and actually, you know, making the ecosystem way more lively, because there's a full ecosystem around it now, rather than, you know, bits of whether it be docs or content that you have to go and find. You know, it's far more easy to kind of to learn Rust, to use it and actually put it into an application today than it was even a year or two ago. Now that leads me on to, it's about now in the year, I think it was last week, that Stack Overflow kind of finished. I believe they finished, or they might be about to start. I know it's around now, the survey. And so this is the big one. This is the one that I really want to see where it lands, because Rust is just, I say quietly, but Rust is quietly growing with popularity. It's one that it isn't getting the shine, you know, when you see on this survey. Everybody talks about, well, look what Python's doing, or look what JavaScript is doing, look what Go is doing. Look, there's always another language to talk about. And actually Rust has been the one that's making the headlines, if you like, quietly in the background. So I'm interested to see what that looks like.
So I promise that when the Stack Overflow survey will be out, I will not watch it, and I'll do a live reaction. So I might even be disappointed. I'm joking, but I want to check everything online. I think it will be harder because I opened Twitter as a first thing today. But as soon as I see the Stack Overflow survey is out, I will stop checking social media. I will jump on a live stream, and I'll try to do a honest reaction, because I will suck to do a fake reaction. And then you can see my disappointment, my excitement. So I'll try to make a honest live reaction. So please don't send me DM like, hey, Rust now is second. It's fine.
Yeah.
I want to try to make this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. Now we've just got a couple here that were more to do with sort of the day-to-day of what both of us do, really. We're obviously working in developer relations, so we're developers, but we also create content. And I've come from a video background, so this always interests me, because it was something that when I started making kind of code-related content, and I would see, you know, these stories of people having API keys and just leaving them in their code that's then on the video, and people writing them down and using them, and all these kinds of horror stories. Now this one was an interesting one, because it shows how, you know, of course, technology can sometimes be used for negative reasons, but essentially somebody put out a challenge where they said, here's a video, I have pixelated this content, can you show me the content of this folder? And I believe it was the following day, or within a few hours, this person came back and said, yep, here it is. And they gave them the screenshot with all of the file names and everything that they could see. So it's not so much something that it's not going to really impact us. You know, we're obviously pixelating things, and we will find ways of pixelating things, but it does show how these two things are kind of meeting. You know, the developers are very clever, and they've got a lot of skills and tools at their disposal, and it shows that, you know, sometimes they might be used for kind of negative things. Have you ever made that mistake though? Have you ever put something sensitive in a video and then realized afterwards when you've shared it and thought?
For now, not for now. I can share something that happened some days ago. I decided to live stream also with an external camera that was put it here. And it was actually like pointed to my keyboard. So at some point, I typed a password and then I realized it. So I had to quickly change the password. So that was something. Exposing. I don't think so far. I try to be be very careful, but we don't know. Otherwise, I'll probably know. I will have probably known. So far, it went well. In this case, I'm really shocked, Daniel, because I mean that was not OCR, because that's not possible by OCR. So I think in this case they reversed the algorithm. So it's not just because I thought that like this was able to recognize, but this is objectively not recognizable even with AI or human hand. So if it's so precise, it means that they reversed the algorithm. They understood based on the output which one was the input. There is no other way, a possible way to write like all this long text. So yeah, I think we should really be careful, and probably at this moment, probably doing some manual blur or maybe using an external tool. It will be important. So we can't even share maybe what we used, because I don't know, that blur sounds like, I don't know, maybe the person recognized the tool that has been used, you see, and so they basically reversed it.
Yeah, I mean, they've actually got there the project highlights vulnerabilities in basic pixelation, and then it's got the dpix tool uses matching patterns against a known font database to depixelate even still images. So yeah, very, very clever. It shows that these things that we think we've done due diligence. And I think we're at that time where even when we think we've done due diligence and we've done what we need to do to keep things secure, it's a cat and mouse game, and there's always new tools out there.
Or maybe it was a friend of him, and they wanted just to make some noise. Can also be.
You clever man. It could be that. It could in fact be that. Yeah, and I'm falling for it here. Who knows?
You see, now if we say something, we always say like, okay, it's AI. Maybe the question is simpler than one you might think. Maybe you have been tricked in watching that video. So
you should be a detective. You should be a detective. Yeah. Now this one here I thought was just one that I thought was a very interesting one, because it's one that and I'm only going to sort of stay on this for 1 second. I mean, when we're live streaming, luckily our community is very friendly. We don't get these nasty comments in the chat, but what we do kind of like everybody have to deal with is some element of moderation. And I thought this is just one to put out there really to show people rather than sort of get into the discussion. But it was very interesting to see this idea that you could use AI to do some form of kind of mass content moderation. And for somebody like yourself, where there's lots of platforms and you've got a community of, I think about 600,000 people across different platforms, there's a lot to police there potentially. And again, your community is very friendly. I think it's very, very friendly. Every time I've spoken to anybody, they're lovely. But still, it's something to just bring to people's attention really that we'll move on from. And it's open source. So you can go and check that one out, iffy.com, and that's open source. Now, just to finish up, because we've got a couple of things I'm just going to show on screen for a moment, but then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what the rest of the year looks like. So just to sort of do a shout out, really, we'll just open these ones here. We've got a shout out, which is for Nolan Royalty. So this is a person who makes very, very interesting games. He made a game called 1 Million Checkboxes. That was just 1 million checkboxes that you could turn ones on and off, and it was done live so that you could kind of make patterns or words. And Nolan always makes these really interesting projects that are somewhere between like a game and a software, experiment, and he wants to see what he can do. And he's made a game that is 1 million chessboards happening live, essentially being played on live. So we thought we'd just show that one off, because we love whenever we see Nolan's done something new, because speaking to him as well, he's just got such a fascinating view on, I wonder if I could do that. Sometimes he makes games in the Finder app on Mac and things like this. So he makes really interesting games. So you can find that one there at 1millionchessboards.com. We just want to give Nolan a quick shout out. Okay, now we're just going to look at these very quick, just to show some tools for people, and then we're going to talk about what's next. But this one here is codecafe.app. I liked this because it reminded me of, the days when we would all actually see each other in person and maybe go and hang out with a friend and write some code or go and build something or be creative together. And this idea that you can, in real time, collaborate with people and it not being something that slows your workflow down. So I haven't checked this one out. I haven't given it a go yet, but I really like the look of it and the way that you can see there 2 different screens updating the code live and getting the feedback, and they can kind of share that together. So just a nice thing to add to your setup if you don't want to get lost in setting all of that stuff up and actually making it run. You've got a tool there that can do it for you. All right, and the last one, because this is something that we will both do. I saw this and I thought, fantastic. I use Screen Studio for my screen recordings and when I want to show people things that I'm doing, if I'm doing a tutorial or anything like that. And this one here, you can do it screenrecorder.me. You can do it in the browser, no login required, and you can do some of the Zooms as well. So I just thought for some of our community out there that want to get into some of that video side of things and they see these videos and they maybe think, how are they done? This is a really nice tool that you can use to just straight away show what you're doing, make some content and not have to spend a day editing it. Okay, so that's a few tools. Now we're going to get back to, just to finish up, I'm going to surprise you with another one of yours here, Francesco, because this is something that is very much how we came across each other. I've got ads. I'm on the clearly on the wrong YouTube account there if I've got ads. Hey, I'm not used to that. There we go. So in the background, we can see here, there we go, public speaking as a DevRel. I just wanted for a couple of minutes really just to talk a little bit about what it is that how you got into public speaking. We've obviously got you again this year at the World Congress, and we'll talk a little bit later about what that is, just to finish up. But give us a little bit of your story for those that might not know it. How did you go from, and tell me a little bit, the European Space Station at some point? How did you end up going from that to being one of the sort of biggest YouTubers in the world of programming? Give us the story.
Okay, I'll try to do a quick version, otherwise we'll stay here until midnight. I'm not sure if you want this then. So just to give a very quick context, quick version, I've been working as a volleyball coach since I was 16, since I were 32. And then in 2015, I decided to switch to tech. And I started learning many things. Trust me, many things. And even if I was working like as not working, but studying for a CS degree. So I was basically studying for a CS degree. Then I was studying on my own. I was not active on social media, so I had a lot of time to do things for real. Now, of course, now we are just having fun. Long story short, basically, in 2020, while I was working for the European Space Agency for about 3 years as a full-stack developer. In 2020, we started to have COVID and lockdown, so I started to do way more stuff at home. I got that I got that chance to stay more active on social media and see if I can actually have some value out of it. Opened my YouTube channel in August 2020, and then I started, to interact with people, having people on my channel. And in January 2021, yes, I got an email from Jerry for WeAreDevelopers. And this was the first person who ever reached out to me, because usually I don't reach out to people, and I didn't do like a CFP. I don't know, it's a style I always had, and it worked so far in my life. So I think I'll stick to this until retirement. So usually I do stuff and I hope that good things happen to me. It worked so far. So I got Jerry, who sent me this message, saying like, "Hey Francesco, would you like to come as a speaker for this conference?" Oh, this conference looks nice. I didn't know about it. The developer said, "Okay, this conference is sort of big." And long story short, I can't remember if it was 2022. No, I think it was 2022. I need to double check. But basically, in May, I was still not a public speaker, But I think it's easier to see, because this will be my fourth time at WeAreDevelopers, and I've been at each of them. So 22, 23, so 22. It was 22. It's easy because I've been to WeAreDevelopers every year. So you see, it's easy to do the math here. So sorry, it was 2022, not 2021. That was a bit too quick. And basically, I remember I think there was also Chris on a wagon at some point, because I was in Poland. So because WeAreDevelopers has been the first conference that invited me as a public speaker. But someone from Poland had a conference in May, so before WeAreDevelopers. So WeAreDevelopers is actually not the first conference I went to. So basically, it's a bit strange. So you've been the first one who invited me, and you put me on the website. Kudos to you. But then, this Poland organizer, they were quick. They invited me in February for May. So that was actually my first conference. And I think Chris was also there. At some point, Michelle, she worked as a developer advocate at GitHub. I'll meet her again in a couple of weeks in Romania. She asked me, I think, the hardest question I ever got, which is like, Francesco, but why are you doing public speaking? Because to be honest, I already had the job, the DevRel, the YouTube channel. So, those existential, philosophical, maybe it was not philosophical, but, it's a bit strange. It's then why are you there now doing the developer advocacy thing? Why did you marry your wife? I don't know, questions that they make you think for a while. So I've been thinking for 30 seconds, I think. Then I said, you know what? I think the real reason why I got into public speaking is because it was something that scared me. And this is the same reason why I'm now writing a book. So sometimes, in some rare moments, I have some brave moments in my life, and I accept new challenges. And I think this is what that keeps me going. So I started doing public speaking because I'm scared of public speaking. Maybe this sounds weird, but I think it's similar to people who they do a marathon because they can't run. So since you can't run, then you exercise and you have a goal. And so basically, I decided to accept this opportunity with WeAreDevelopers, and I went towards other public speaking conferences. And the reason is that I was scared of public speaking. Basically, this is the real truth. And then when you do something that scares you, it opens up to all the opportunities that you would not have had if you didn't accept. And this is, I think, is the main reason why I do public speaking, and of course also to take selfies on stage, but that's another story. I think that, and I think another reason why I go to conferences, I think I realized this after a year or so, is that before being a developer, I was doing all these in-person events for sports matches. So people cheering. We also get some Italian finals. So some hundreds of people, sometimes even maybe thousands. And I was really missing that. Maybe this was, a deep desire, maybe buried somewhere in my brain. Maybe maybe call me that I am old style, but I really love doing in-person things. I think you can confirm this. So I am the Twitter. I'm still this Twitter guy, YouTuber guy, whatever, social media star, influencer. Don't call me like that. But I really like to go in person and doing things in person. I still remember we doing a recording session in person. I loved doing that, for example. So that's it. I'm probably just old then.
No, I think it's great. I do. And I think that was an important message, I think, to share, because we've always got people in the community who approach us and they might say, how do I get into public speaking, or can I be a part of this, or how do I get onto the Congress and things like this. And I would always sort of recommend as well that, listen to some of the content you've put out there, because you do talk about that in saying, you are naturally an introverted person, but that if somebody was to see your content for the first time, they would think that you were the most extroverted of extroverts, but that's not the case. So I think people can learn from that. Now, I just want to put two things in front of the people watching and on that what you were saying, really. So first of all, you might be watching this on YouTube, you might be watching this through or have gone through our homepage, but you will be able to watch all of these live streams on Wednesday live. And you'll also be able to watch them, of course, afterwards, either through our YouTube channel or through this page here, which is just wearedevelopers.com/live. So wearedevelopers.com/live. Now, but there's also something that you can do if you'd like to get involved, or you know somebody who could get involved. So we love to just hear from people about, who would be a good guest, who's somebody that you think we should speak to on a particular topic, or just somebody who's doing something really interesting. Our newsletter goes out to almost 200,000 people every week. So, in that 200,000, there's more fascinating people than we could possibly actually meet ourselves. So we'd love to hear from you. You can recommend somebody, and you can just let us know what it is that we should speak to them about, and we can get them on the show. But also we have, of course, our live days where we have sort of workshops or tutorials or live coding sessions. So after we've met that person, we usually find, the best place for them and where they'd be well suited, whether it's online or in person at things like the Congress, which leads us to, and this is where we'll just we'll finish up, because I know you've given us a good deal of your time today, but this is where you can next see Francesco. Of course, you can see him online as well, but you can see Francesco in July. So the 9th to the 11th of July in Berlin, as always. I'm practicing my German for once. I'm practicing my Italian as always, Francesco, you know that. But we're going to be ready for the World Congress. And can you give us, just to finish up, Francesco, can you give us like a sneak peek or a clue or an insight? What is it you're going to be talking about this year?
Yeah, sure. So I'm basically preparing my best talk ever, and this is not an Apple ad, because I think that for the first time this will be a real motivational speech, because so far I just did the technical talks, a couple of soft skills, but never a real inspirational stage. So if you're curious about that, I'm working hard. I already have the final message. Of course, I have some drafts. I work on this talk while I go for my walks, for my runs. So at the end, you will probably will have many analogies with running and walking, just because of the talk has been prepared. The talk. Can we share the title, Daniel, or not yet? Do you want to just spoiler?
Maybe just hint. No. Maybe just hint. Yeah.
Okay. So it will be about how everyone can be successful if they go in the right direction. I will stop here. It's a hard reflection. I will bring examples. Of course, it will be examples of developers, example of successful people, and I really want to highlight how your path doesn't have to be ordinary. And I think also your path, like Daniel, it's been not ordinary. When I stepped into tech, I thought like everyone had the same, boring path. You do a CS degree, because this is how it works in Italy. Like you need that CS degree, and then you get hired for a corporate, and then that's your developer career. When I joined tech, I discovered that that's like the 1% of developers, maybe 2%. The rest of us, they have done different jobs, different things, and I will ask this on stage, and I want the real proof. Daniel, when I came for the first talk at WeAreDevelopers, there was it was introverted developers on social media. So I asked in person, do you consider yourself an introvert? It's 70% of the people raised their hand, and we were at a conference. So the real introverts, they were at home, jokes, of course. So I will ask. This on stage, and this shocked me. It really changed my vision. I thought that I was an imposter, the only guy who switched to tech. And now I know that it's not like that. But before that, I didn't know. Maybe if you want to switch to tech, you are a bit scared and you think that it's not for you. I switched career to tech when I was 32, and I think that I'm not even the oldest one, and it worked like a charm. You just need to put some effort, of course, and I think that's enough for a spoiler.
Yeah, no, I like that. I really like that, and I can relate to it as somebody who switched around 30 as well. So, as always, Francesco, I'm going to be there at you. Even though I'm running around like mad during that Congress, I always make sure, like last year, I find some time to go and watch your session. Mm-hmm. So, just to finish up, Francesco, where can everybody find you? Of course, they can find you on YouTube, but give us some of your handles or links.
I mean, you can find me everywhere. There are many Francesco Sciulla in the world, but gladly no one bought the francescosciulla.com domain until 2020 when I bought it. So kudos to me. So you can find me here, and yeah, probably you will find me around doing probably videos on YouTube and everywhere around the world at some points. But I really believe that if you want to find someone, you will find it. Now we are in the internet era, so that's enough. Thank you so much, Daniel, for inviting me. You know, WeAreDevelopers will always have a special place in my heart for the type of conference. First of all, because it's a big conference. I think that all my public speaking that I did at WeAreDevelopers really changed my life. The first talk was Introverted Developers on Social Media. I have this on my channel, shameless plug, the whole recording. I think that going to conferences can really have an impact on your career. If you go there with an intent that you want to really learn something, network with people. I hate the word networking, but I can network with people, connect with people, having like real connections. Like Daniel, I think you are a proof of this. You remember we met at WeAreDevelopers. We are not faking it now. And then the year later, you became the developer advocate there. So this hella works, right?
Oh, it does. Absolutely. I'd say my advice would be listen to Francesco, because that is absolutely true. And yeah, you're right. We might not like the word networking, but it works. All right, Francesco, we're gonna end up in just a couple of moments, but I just want to say thanks again for joining us. Always, you've got a place in our heart as well. We're always happy to have you here. To anybody who's watching, if you've just joined and you've missed the stream, it's okay. It's going to be up in a few hours, and you can also get that on the podcast app, whichever app you use. And the only other thing to say is go and check out and follow Francesco's work, but also check out the World Congress or worldcongress.dev, where you can get tickets for the World Congress where Francesco is going to be speaking. Okay, with that being said, everyone have a good Wednesday. Enjoy yourselves. Don't take life too seriously, and make sure if the sun is shining that you don't sit behind that screen all day. Get out in the sun, touch some grass. All right. Thanks again, Francesco. We'll see you soon.